Hello and welcome back to Film and Game Composers. I'm Meena Shamaly, and we're continuing our look at Strezov Sampling's Aleatoric Modular series. This time we're starting to look at the individual libraries of the bundle, beginning with Trumpets. So, as we said, it's a user-guided aleatoric orchestral sample library, and it's 3 of the best players in Bulgaria recorded in the Sofia Session Orchestral Hall. And this is the product page. If you buy it separately, you get it for $110. And obviously it gets a bit cheaper if you buy it as part of the bundle. Quick rundown of the specs. Full version of Kontakt 4 or higher required, so this won't work on the free Kontakt player. 3 trumpets. Everything is recorded normal and muted. You guide your dynamics and variations in real time using MIDI CC, which is the key selling points of the library, I believe. 5 mic positions, including a mixed down light mic position, and as the tagline goes, perfect for scoring trailers, games, and film. So it requires 8.5 gigabytes of free space, once it's unpacked. And, installation is pretty simple, as we said. You either get manual links and RAR files that you extract and point Kontakt to, or you use their installer, which I haven't used myself, but I hear is wonderful. All right, so as we said, full version of Kontakt, we're looking at, this won't load up in the Libraries tab, so we're looking at the Files tab or the Quick Load browser. Now, this is the default full Trumpets, which comes not preloaded. There was a preloaded version in version 2.0, but now we're in 2.1, and that preloaded version does not seem to have been updated. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I've experienced. So what I've done is I've actually created a full loaded patch to compensate for that. So that has all the articulations as per the other 2 libraries. So let's have a quick rundown of what we've got. Let's just go straight through the articulations. We've been through the interface. We know what it's about. So the articulations start off with lip bends. Then you got flutter bends. Now the thing I like is that the lip bends and the flutter bends are consistent. So almost like they've recorded them one after the other. It's like do this and then do it again fluttered, and then they collected it the same way. So it's pretty cool. And then you got trills. You got jitters. And you got flurries. So you get the same things, harmon muted as well. So these are the lip bends. And then harmon flutter bends. Get harmon trills. Harmon jitters. And harmon flurries. Now, obviously, these things would be very, very hard to try to replicate with standard samples. And you could try, but it'll just be, I don't know if it'd be worth the effort. It'll be much easier and much cheaper to even just get a trumpet section and just hire them and tell them, just do this, okay? This is why libraries like this exist. And the fact that you can control it with the mod wheel means that everything's under your control. It's up to you. It's not up to whatever the recorded articulation is. So this is designed to respond to what you're doing, And you can also control the volume with the expression pedal, CC11, or map it to another controller of your choice. But this adds a lot more flexibility with the sound. So I've got both CC1 and CC11 happening now. Or you can just do this whole flutter bend thing. Could start off with really low. So, you're not locked into whatever was recorded, whatever one shot, and even then, if you just control the volume and that kind of thing, it feels like the progression of this can be controlled by what you do. Now, the way this is mapped isn't necessarily what the trumpet's like. So it's not necessarily just chromatic, but it's more, you can tell kind of which area of the trumpet's range you're in. I'll go back to the lip bends. If you wanted a lot more control, you could maybe load up 2 of them and then control each of them individually. If you wanted more than one note, if you wanted really a lot more of that fine control, which is available. So these are most of the default articulations, right? Now you also get sustains. So I'm going to load up sustains and Harman muted sustains. And this is what they sound like. Obviously, as we said in the interface video, you can load up anything anywhere. So these are your 12 standard key switches, and you can just fill them up however you'd like. So this is your sustains. And as you can see here, it's actually mapped to your trumpet's range. Now, if you hear that, that's a really nice sound. A lot of trumpet samples can be too much up there, but even in the high range, they've captured it really, really well. That's actually something I really like. Obviously, sustains aren't the focus here, but it's really nice that they've been included. So here you also got Harman sustains. And I really like the smoothness of the transition using CC1 between the dynamics. That's my computer. It's got nothing to do with the library. So back to the normal sustains. So it's a really nice transition. They've really got those transitions down. So those dynamic transitions down. Obviously, there are no legato transitions. For that, you'd have to refer to their other library, their other brass library, which is more about standard articulations, and record it in the same hall so you can mix them all together. So I look forward to using their other brass libraries one day, which I don't have at the moment, but maybe one day. So that is the sustains you can use. Now, before I do anything else, I just want to check out the mic positions again, as they refer to the trumpets, particularly, right? So I'll load them all up and just solo them and check them out across all the different articulations. So if you try the lip bends, for example, we start off with the full mix, which is a mixed down version of the closed Teca-tree, outrigger, and balcony. And then let's start with the Deca-tree. So you get a really lovely hall sound. You get outrigger, which is very similar to the Deca-tree, except it's a bit wider. and the balcony, which on some of the articulations it doesn't sound that different, and on others it sounds really different. So here it's not necessarily that different, but there is a bit of a difference in tone using the balcony. And then you got close, which is obviously the biggest difference. It's like right up in your face. So what I'll do is I'll just run through all the articulations and kind of switch between those mic positions for you to check out. So let's try it here. Oh, sorry, it's supposed to be. Try this again. So obviously in the lip bends, it doesn't sound necessarily that different between some of those, the decatriatric and balcony, but try it with the flutter bends, for example. So try it for the full. So there's quite a bit of a difference in tone, which is a lot more detectable, and that can help your mix as well, because sometimes certain frequencies are more accentuated in a way that makes them a little harder to mix. Some frequencies can be, a little nicer in a mix. So it's up to you. There are a lot of mixing options there. Try that with the trills. So let's try with the full. So obviously there's a bit here, the difference is a lot more detectable. And provides a variety of things you can do. So try jitters. No. And flurries. So here I feel a bit more of a difference. And what I really like about the way they've captured it is that these trumpets sound very full-bodied. Sometimes trumpets in this world of samples can be a little thin, but these sound really nice and full-bodied. I wonder how they would react to the high-pass filter, which I haven't really tried, but check it out. Let's see. I think with the flurries, that's really where you got a lot of. So it still works really well, even, and responds really well to the high pass filter. So I quite like the body that they've captured. It's really kind of live, feels really live. So yeah, let's just try that with the sustain. So this is what the close mic sounds like with the sustains. Something like that. And see, again, the transition is really smooth. Try that with the decatry. Try that with the out trigger. With the balcony. So you capture a lot more of trumpeters will laugh at me now, but the twang of the trumpet captures a lot more of a different kind of a frequency range in the recording. Let's see with the balcony. So with the out trigger, for example, it's a little more subdued. But the balcony seems to capture a bit more of that particular frequency. Obviously, there's no legato here, but yeah. So the full mic mix sounds like this. So it's really well, nice and full bodied, and I really enjoyed that. Obviously, there's no round robin on the sustains. So for that, hey, maybe go to the other brass libraries, check out what they've got. Because obviously the focus here is on the what are the words? The effects articulations. So there you go. All right. So let's try the mic positions with the Harman muted articulations. Start to feel a sense of the distance at which they were captured and how you can mix them. So here you can really kind of hear the difference in the trills. And then the jitters. And your flurries. So if you're going with the close mics, it starts to sound a bit cartoonish. Obviously, because a lot of old-timey cartoons use these close mic orchestras to go in to Mickey Mouse with the action. It's pretty cool. Harman sustains, just put that on close. Put that on decatry. Outrigger. So balcony. So again, the balcony seems to capture a bit more of the twang of the trumpet. And then you got full. Which I like the full mix because it's that mix of perspectives that helps something sound real. Some of the problems with a lot of recordings is when we focus in on one mic source in a room, and that kind of becomes very unnatural. That may be the sound you want, but that's very unnatural. But when you mix a bunch of perspectives, that's actually how you're hearing any of these instruments. So I really like the way the Strezov guys have sampled, or Casey Edwards, or both of them have sampled these instruments, specifically the trumpets. I mean, the whole thing, but specifically I'm talking now about the trumpets and their sound and their mic placements and their hall placement and everything. I really like what they've done there. So that makes me really excited about checking out their other brass library to see, what can I do with these regular, the more standard articulations using this mic mix and using these ideas. So there you go. So these are the mic positions. Now, the next thing I just want to quickly touch on is the random start again, because as we spoke about in the interface video, this is very useful in aleatoric kind of things. Actually, the flutter bends aren't, because they're a lot more standard. Maybe jitters. These will sound a little more random. So every time you're getting a different kind of sample, different start point to the sample. It's a bit more subtle if you put it down there. But 0%, it's always the same start. Now, as awesome as this random start is I also wish there were the controlled start. So I can kind of go right into part of that recording that I want, which would reflect what would happen in the real world, because in the real world, yes, players will play differently every time, but once you've got a recording, the recording will sound the same every time, and maybe that's part of what you need. So I personally wish there were a controlled start, and maybe the guys might think about it in the update. But if it's not there, I'm not mad. You know what I mean? Because most of the time with aleatoric things, whatever the different things that come up every time will usually be okay, And it's not so much about each individual detail as much as it is about the atmosphere and the effect. So doing a random start at 100% and trying to do something like this. If I do it again. If I do it again. I'm not upset that it sounds a bit different every time. You know what I mean? Because it's more about the effect, the movement, and the general nature of these jitters. Because these jitters themselves aren't the point. Each note isn't the point. The point is that you're doing this kind of sound effect and providing it in the end result. So, that's my take on it. Anyway, that obviously is the difference between the full and light patches. So if the light patch is the same as having this at 0%. The memory of the standard patch would be, if I went the full loaded, just load it up again, comes in at 0.53 gigabytes. And if I go with the light, comes in at 15 megabytes. So, if the random start isn't something you were looking for, the lights will save you a lot of RAM, and that could help in a dense session if you're you've got a lot of things happening and your machine isn't able to run everything. But yeah, so there you go. So that's the difference between full and light, and that's the random start. So next we're just going to look at the mixed articulations. So as we talked about, mixed is where you can mix two different articulations together. So say I'll go for lip bends. So normal lip bends into flutter bends. We get bends to flutter, and what I've activated here is a transformer to make CC22 control CC2. Because to blend between these two articulations, you use CC2, which is usually the best controller, but I much prefer using that for dynamics, which I'm not doing now, but I'm just as a general thing. So I've got a different controller controlling the blend between those two articulations. So I'll just put the dynamics just in the middle, and now you can't see the controller moving, but it is moving. Trust me. Just check out this to tell you that it's moving. So suddenly, this library is twice as powerful as it otherwise was. No longer, I'm not just controlling dynamics, I'm also controlling a shift between articulations. So say, for example, start off with the low dynamic and the bends. And together I've been able to control them. You might do this later on, like after the fact. You might control one at a time and then the other. But the fact is, I can do this, So that's pretty cool. So if we empty it here and then try a different mixed articulation, trills to flurries, for example. So let's put it up here. Once again, now this library has become twice as powerful just for the existence of these mixed articulations, which is pretty amazing. You can do the same thing here with Harman muted stuff, because obviously in the real world, you're not going to blend between something and just put a mute in the middle of it. I mean, I suppose you can, but it would be kind of extreme, and not a lot of people do that. So if you go flutter bends to jitters. I'll move it a bit more slowly. Again, brilliant user control. And sometimes that is the most frustrating thing about using effect samples is the fact that you don't have that much control over it, And for this amount of control to be available at your fingertips with all the effects that are included, dynamics and variation between controls, and that's a heavy amount of control that will prove very useful. So, you can create your own little riser with the dynamics and then just switch the articulations in between to kind of give you a different effect than just one articulation or the other. So that is pretty amazing. And a lot of the value of the library will lie right there. So that's my take on that. Last but not least is the rips and falls. Sorry, no, not cluster splits first. Was what I wanted to check out. So we had a quick look at the cluster splits in the interface video, but I'll look at it as it pertains to trumpets. So as we said, so cluster split begins as a sustain, and with CC71 you can control a deviation. And then with CC74, you can include an extension if you activate it. So press activate, determine how much you want to deviate. So minor second or up to perfect fifth. So say we'll make it major second, right? So start off with deviation, and then we add in the extension. Now, I wish I had 6 hands to actually control everything at the same time, but I don't. So that's probably stuff you'll have to do after the fact. So that's pretty cool. And then if you go, say, tritone up here, so it's 6 semitones, put it up here. So that extension is kind of a scripted pitch bend. So obviously it will sound unnatural if you kind of... So you want to move that a lot slower. But yes, that's pretty awesome that you can do that. My only gripe is that I wish that these things were a bit more independent. I mean, yes, you can control them independently, but if I don't put deviation on, extension does nothing. I wish the extension thing was possible in the way that they did in LA scoring strings, where you can control each of these deviations as you wish. But that's okay. I'm not that troubled by it, especially in the aleatoric realm where that doesn't really, like, these specifics don't really matter as much, I mean, some people like Fernie Howe, who's a crazy composer, would want these things very specifically, but, for most of us, it'll be okay, So that is the cluster split, and you obviously have a Harman muted version of it. So just do that slowly. Start maybe with a... So some pretty creepy stuff can be made. All right, so last but not least, we're going to look at the rips and... Oh, what did I do? My bad. The rips and falls. So we'll load up standard, normal, rips and falls, and then we'll also use the Harman muted version. So Harman and rips and falls. So what this is, and let me just put it down because it's actually a bit loud, is exactly what it sounds like. The mod wheel here actually controls whether it rises or it falls, whether it's a rip or a fall. So if I put the mod wheel down, it's a fall. and the further up the keyboard you go, the longer it is, right? And if I put it up, so it can it can get quite long or quite short, however you want it. You can do it with the harmony muted. So yeah, so there you go. So that's the Rips and Falls. However, you've also got a Time Machine Pro Rips and Falls, both the Harmon muted and the normal. So you can either have them at normal tempo, or you can also put them at double tempo or half tempo. Let me just put this down a little bit. Now, if I put this at double tempo, so this is double the amount of the original riser and fall. I don't think this has anything to do with the tempo of your piece. So if I play this, I'll change the tempo. Oh, it does. But the thing is, it's not like necessarily quantized. So if I just press play and you hear the click. So it's not necessarily like right up to the bar. 2, 3. Kind of like it fills the bar, but you might have to adjust it a little bit. So it does respond to your tempo as well. So it's like go. So it stops short of the downbeat. If I go the riser. So maybe you want to start it a tad later to get on the beat. Sort of like. Yeah, so maybe you want to start a bar later. And you can work that out, but you know, the fact that it responds to your tempo as well is pretty awesome. It's a little more subtle when it's normal. Say I'll do that. Maybe try that at the third beat. 1, 2, 3. So there you go. So you can create all these risers, and then imagine being able to create these risers along with the other patches as well, and just mix them all together. There is a ton of possibilities to how you can do. So maybe you can add these at the end of using these other articulations, where you've put the module right up and then just stick these at the end. You have a really cool thing. So you've also got Harmon muted chips, of course, Harmon muted rips and falls, of course. You can key switch them in. So there's a lot that can be done. So there you go. So this covers the trumpets. And in our next video, we'll have a look at the French horns. So join us for that.